Hey everybody, welcome into Folklore and Flourish. You're here with Jane and Mark today. Mark is back with us today. I kind of told them that yesterday we were transitioning into getting your room set up for your QHHT and how you're healing through that instead, and how you're still going to be coming on and guest starring and everything, but we're kind of going on our separate paths while still being together. So I kind of just introduced that a little bit yesterday. If you wanted to, I couldn't quite remember the exact name, but I told them a lot of interviews, not obviously not the people, right? You're going pretty fast on filling your list of 25. That stuff won't be online, but there'll be a lot about your experience on your site. Do you want to talk about that while you're here today, where your YouTube is and stuff?
Yeah, it's everything I'm doing is going to be Marks, MARKS, QHHT, and then at whatever it is. Like, so my email is at Bluebox.
But like your YouTube channel, is it
YouTube
behind
is the same. No,
QHHT or?
No, it's the same thing. It's Marks QHHT
Okay,
at
perfect.
YouTube. You should be able to find it. Nothing on there yet is changed, really. I haven't got that set up yet, obviously, because we're just starting doing this.
Right, but I told them yesterday how kind of April, our fourth month, Folklore and Flourish's fourth month, is kind of where we're making more of that breakage.
Yeah.
Where you're really diving in. I mean, you've already done a couple, and you're moving in, you're learning stuff already, so it's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
I think it'll be fun for you to do kind of almost like a video diary or documentary for your process.
Yeah, and I would love to do that. Actually, on my drive home today, I was actually thinking about that, where I was like, man, I want to do something like that so people can see that at some point. Maybe make a mini documentary.
I think that we'll be able to have that room. Yeah. You'll be able to put something up, and I can put a shelf behind the recliner, behind your chair, where it can have just very minimalistic items in there, very, very minimal. But that way you could document, So maybe I'll do that tomorrow. Because then you'll have your space as well, where, yeah, you could come in here with it if you'd like to do behind the scenes, but it was feeling really good in there when the sun was up and the the curtains were open.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm excited for you to experience it. But while we're here, let's focus on Folklore and Flourish. We're on the final week of our destiny being sealed for our tested hero. Today is the law, so our theme is order restored. So we're going to look at the law through Babylonian, Hebrew, Indian, and Chinese folklore today. So we're going to look at these 4 stories that all have to do with the law and order being restored. We'll see you after this. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that. Story 1. Hammurabi and the Code of Order. In the ancient city of Babylon, where growing civilizations required not only leadership but structure to sustain them, the reign of Hammurabi marked a turning point in how power was defined, not through dominance alone, but through the establishment of order. And as king, Hammurabi understood that authority without clarity led to imbalance, that without a shared understanding of right and wrong, even the strongest rule could fracture. And so he set out to create something enduring, a system that would govern not just actions, but expectations. And from this intention came the Code of Hammurabi, one of the earliest known written legal systems, carved into stone so that it could not be altered, hidden, or forgotten. At the top of this stele, Hammurabi is depicted receiving the law from Shamash, the sun god and deity of justice, reinforcing the belief that law was not merely human invention, but divinely sanctioned, something that connected earthly rule to cosmic order. And the code itself was extensive, covering matters of trade, family, labor, and consequence, establishing not only what actions were permitted, but what would follow when those boundaries were crossed. And while some of its laws may seem severe by modern standards, including principles like an eye for an eye, they reflected a critical shift, the movement from arbitrary judgment to consistent structure, where outcomes were defined not by the whims of a ruler, but by an agreed upon system. This was the true transformation. The justice became visible, predictable, and shared, allowing people to understand the framework within which they lived. And in doing so, Hammurabi redefined power itself, showing that true authority is not simply the ability to act, but the ability to create a system that outlives the individual, that maintains balance even in their absence. And this required not only intelligence, but restraint. The recognition that leadership is not about controlling every moment, but about establishing principles that guide them. The code did not eliminate conflict, nor did it create perfection, but it provided a structure within which society could function, where disputes could be resolved, where expectations were clear, and where order could be restored when disrupted. And in this, Hammurabi's legacy extends far beyond his lifetime, influencing future legal systems and shaping the ways civilizations understood justice. This story reveals that power reaches its fullest expression not in force, but in fairness, not in unpredictability, but in consistency, and that to govern is not simply to rule over others, but to define the boundaries within which life unfolds, creating a foundation that supports growth, stability, and continuity. In the end, Hammurabi stands not only as a king, but as a lawgiver, one who understood that authority, when aligned with justice, becomes something greater than control. It becomes order itself, a framework that allows both individuals and societies to move forward with clarity, knowing where they stand and what is expected of them. Story 2. Moses and the Law of Sinai. In the wilderness between bondage and promise, where the people of Israel had been led out of Egypt, but had not yet become a unified nation, there came a moment where freedom alone was no longer enough, for without structure, without shared understanding, even liberation could dissolve into confusion. And at the center of this transition stood Moses, a leader who had already guided his people through the crossing of the Red Sea and into the uncertainty of the desert, yet now faced a different kind of challenge. Not how to escape, but how to establish, how to form a people not just physically, but morally and spiritually. And it is here, at Mount Sinai, that the story reaches its defining moment. As the mountain became enveloped in cloud, thunder, and fire, a visible manifestation of divine presence, Moses ascended alone, stepping into an encounter that would shape not only his people, but the concept of law itself. And in that place he received the Ten Commandments, not as suggestions, but as foundational principles, carved into stone representing permanence, clarity, and accountability, establishing boundaries that define relationship, not only between individuals, but between humanity and the divine, covering actions, intentions, and responsibilities, from honoring life and truth to maintaining reverence and integrity. This moment marked a shift from external freedom to internal order, from being released from oppression to being entrusted with responsibility. For the law was not given to restrict, but to guide, to create a framework within which a community could function with justice and coherence. And yet, even as this structure was being established, the people below struggled, turning to impatience and uncertainty, creating the golden calf, a symbol of how quickly direction can be lost when clarity is not yet fully embodied. And in this contrast, the story reveals a deeper truth. The receiving law is not the same as living it. That structure must be internalized to become effective, and that leadership must continually reinforce alignment. When Moses descends carrying the tablets, he brings with him not only the law itself, but the responsibility to uphold it, to teach it, and to guide others in understanding its purpose. And though the journey that follows is marked by continued challenges, moments of failure, and the need for correction, the foundation has been set, a shared understanding of right and wrong, of boundary and consequence that allows the people to move forward not as a scattered group, but as a defined community. This story reveals that power, when fully realized, must move beyond action into structure. That leadership requires not only the ability to lead people out, but to guide them into something sustainable, and that law, at its core, is not about control, but about clarity, creating a space where justice can exist and where individuals understand both their freedom and their responsibility. In the end, Moses stands not only as a liberator, but as a lawgiver, one who bridges the gap between chaos and order, showing that true authority is not just the ability to change circumstances, but the ability to establish principles that endure, shaping not only the present, but the future of those who follow. Story 3. Ashoka and the Turn Toward Dharma. In the vast expanse of the Mauryan Empire, one of the largest and most powerful empires in ancient India, the reign of Ashoka began in a way familiar to many rulers of his time, marked by ambition, expansion, and the pursuit of dominance. Yet his story does not remain there, for it is defined not by conquest alone, but by transformation. And this shift begins with the Kalinga War, a conflict of immense scale and consequence, where Ashoka's forces achieved victory but at a devastating cost, with tens of thousands killed, displaced, or left to suffer in the aftermath. And as the dust settled and the reality of what had occurred became visible, the victory no longer held the meaning it once did. For Ashoka, standing in the wake of destruction, confronted something that could not be ignored: the weight of his own actions. This moment became a turning point, not because it erased what had happened, but because it revealed it fully, forcing a reevaluation of power itself. And in that recognition, Ashoka chose a different path, turning towards Dharma, principle rooted in moral order, compassion, and responsibility, shifting his focus from expansion through force to governance through justice. And this was not a symbolic change, but a practical one, reflected in policies, communication, and the way the empire was structured moving forward. He issued edicts carved into stone pillars and rock surfaces across his empire, making his intentions clear and accessible, emphasizing nonviolence, ethical behavior, religious tolerance, and the well-being of both people and animals, creating a framework where leadership was no longer defined by how much could be taken, by how much could be sustained and protected. And in doing so, he redefined what it meant to rule, showing that strength does not diminish when it chooses restraint, but is clarified by it. Ashoka also supported the spread of Buddhism, sending emissaries beyond his borders, not to conquer, but to share teachings centered on awareness, compassion, and the reduction of suffering, extending his influence in a way that did not rely on force, but on understanding. And this shift from external dominance to internal alignment became the foundation of his legacy, distinguishing him not only as a ruler, but as a figure of ethical transformation. The story of Ashoka reveals that law and order are not static, that they can evolve when guided by awareness, that power, when confronted with its consequence, can choose a different direction, and that the ability to change course is not weakness, but a deeper form of strength, one that recognizes the impact of action and responds with intention. In the end, Ashoka's reign becomes a reflection of what happens when authority aligns with conscience, when the structures that govern are shaped not only by necessity, but by care, and when leadership moves beyond control into responsibility, creating a system that not only maintains order, but seeks to reduce harm and support growth, showing that justice is not only about consequence, but about the direction in which power chooses to move. Story 4. The Mandate of Heaven. In ancient China, where dynasties rose and fell across centuries, the question of who should rule was never answered by lineage alone, but by a concept both powerful and fluid, known as the Mandate of Heaven, Tianming, a principle that defined authority not as something permanently held, but as something conditionally granted, dependent upon the ruler's ability to maintain harmony, justice, and the order within both society and the natural world. And within this belief, the emperor was seen as the son of heaven, a figure chosen to govern not by personal claim, but by alignment with a higher order. And this alignment was measured not through words, but through outcomes, through the stability of the land, the prosperity of the people, and the balance of nature itself. When a dynasty ruled well, when crops flourished, when peace was maintained, it was believed that heaven's favor rested upon them, affirming their right to lead. Yet when corruption grew, when suffering increased, when disasters such as floods, famine, or unrest spread across the land, these were not seen as random events, but as signs that the mandate had been withdrawn, that the ruler had fallen out of alignment, and in this way, the system created both legitimacy and accountability, allowing for the rise of new leadership not as rebellion alone, but as restoration, as the reestablishment of order where it had been lost. This concept is reflected in the transition between dynasties, such as the fall of the Shang dynasty and the rise of the Zhou dynasty. Around the 11th century BCE, where the new rulers justified their ascent not through conquest alone, but through the claim that heaven had shifted its favor, that the previous dynasty had failed in its duty, and that it was now their responsibility to restore balance. And this pattern would repeat throughout Chinese history, creating a cyclical understanding of power, where authority was never absolute, but always contingent, always tied to performance and alignment. The mandate of heaven did not eliminate conflict, but it reframed it, turning upheaval into a signal rather than a disruption. A sign that something within the system required correction, and in doing so, it placed a continuous expectation upon those who ruled, that they must remain attentive, just, and responsive, or risk losing the very authority they held. And this created a dynamic where leadership was not a fixed identity, but an ongoing responsibility, one that had to be upheld daily through action, decision, and awareness. This story reveals that law and governance are not only about establishing order, but about maintaining it. That authority is not secured once, but must be continually earned, and that power, when understood fully, is not something owned, but something entrusted, held only as long as alignment remains intact. In the end, the mandate of heaven stands as a reminder that leadership exists within a larger system, one that extends beyond the individual, beyond the throne, and into the balance of all things, showing that true authority is not defined by control, but by harmony, and that the right to govern is sustained not through force, but through the ability to remain aligned with what is just, stable, and life-giving. Hey everybody, welcome back in. Again, you are with Jane and Mark over at Blue Box 29. Today is March 26th. So we are in our final week of March. The tested hero is reaching the end and everything is settling. Okay, so the future is starting to get set by every decision that we're making now, but it's a little bit more calm. Today we saw the law and order restored through 4 stories. Our lesson was that justice defines power. So the justice within our culture, within our system defines power. We got to see that right away with Hammurabi's Code of Order. This is like that tall stone, right, that had the obelisk, or I don't remember if it was that or what kind of stone, but it's one of the oldest, if not the oldest, forms of law. This is literally an eye for an eye. The price of stuff, the consequences were written out. It was very straightforward. What you do to me, I shall do to you. It wasn't anything other. And then based on the intent behind it, sometimes it was even worse consequences. So your intentions did matter, and the harm that you caused to people did matter. So this all was necessary. So it wasn't just necessary, but it was the very start of law and order, pretty much. So Hammurabi set in motion what that would be. And that's pretty crazy to think as far back as these civilizations, right, where we say that they weren't civilized in essence. They were hunters gatherers, or they couldn't think very well, or all this, but yet they create something that is still the cornerstone of today.
Yeah, I think it's time to move on from that whole hunter gatherer. These people didn't know anything. We were taught the wrong history. They were way further along than we give them credit for.
right? And so this one, as well as story two, and yeah, as well as story two right away, both of these structures of law were given. So when I was reading these two stories, I kept thinking about again the Hebrew language,
Right.
the symbols. Both of these stories, I never was taught that Hammurabi was given or that he was depicted receiving this from a deity or a higher being. That was never taught, right? Because it's the mythological portion. But that's very different, him receiving it from someone, to how it was changed to he wrote it himself.
Right.
That's very different,
Extremely.
right? And so,
That makes it like a whole like Moses thing.
and it's exactly that same story,
Yep.
except the location was different, right?
Yep.
The structure that it was on is
Isn't it so
different.
funny though that you have so many cultures that have so many stories that are so much alike? If you look at this one that we're listening to, or these ones that we're listening to, all four of them, you guys heard them. So story one, two, whatever, they're all are the Moses and this one, like receiving it. Then you have another culture that somebody else receives something pretty darn, whatever, significant.
Right.
Like, why? Because I don't know.
Changes the tides of everything. And it makes it so there is accountability, both of them. You're being held to a standard, and it held a lot more power, I think, when it does come from something more divine.
Yeah.
Because then it's not man-made. It's not this corrupt power structure that it is today by the
Yeah, do
wisest
this
people,
because I
right?
say, because it benefits me, not because
Where it was back then, it was just order.
Yeah.
It was eye for an eye. It wasn't, well, who's in, who is
If
it?
it was like that today, imagine what, like, honestly, we wouldn't have as much fighting as we do if
I
you
think we would be
truly
a
think
lot
about
more
it.
compassionate, which is what happens in story three.
Yeah.
He sees that he has the ability to cause all this
I
havoc.
do like story 3 a lot.
Yeah, he has this ability to cause all this havoc, and then he's realizing that this isn't the path.
No, yeah.
This isn't it. And it wasn't, oh my gosh, what have I done? All that. Yeah, for a minimal time, but then it was just, I refuse to
Yeah.
live this way anymore. To see this devastation and to think as I'm wreaking this havoc that it's worth it when it's not.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you do something and you have to tell yourself, remember how this feels, because I
Mhm.
never want to feel this again.
Yep.
Remember how this feels, because every choice that may lead me to this feeling, I don't want it.
Yeah.
So go ahead. What did you feel about this
No,
story?
just that for sure. It's just nice that he can look at it and be like, yeah, but there's another way. There's no reason we have to do it like we were doing. I just really enjoyed that aspect of being able to take that step back. When I think of a leader, that's a leader. That's somebody I would follow if I were to be a follower.
Right.
But I'm not gonna follow you if you're just I don't like being mean to people. I don't like when people are mean. I don't like when animals are mean to other animals. Like, it bugs me.
So we think about this story, and it's from 268 to 232 BCE, right?
Yeah.
Yet he's carving into stone pillars, right? Making it very clear his decisions, but not only clear, they're accessible.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter your place in life.
Mhm.
These apply to everyone. Everyone. So nonviolence, emphasizing nonviolence, ethical behavior, religious tolerance, and the well being of both people and animals, right? Creating a
Uh-huh.
framework where leadership was no longer defined by how much could be taken, but by how much could be sustained and protected. So it was everything. Nature, it's not, well, you're a dog, you're a lesser being than me, or, well, you believe in this or that. We see stuff on the news that in Asia, some of those Eastern Asian places, as well as India, China, they're not tolerant of others, yet they're the most religiously tolerant places in the world. I'm pretty sure those two countries alone have the most diverse amount of religions in one place.
Really?
I believe so. I mean, look at their population. But I don't mean just now I don't mean like some of the Western religions, but you have Hinduism, you have Buddhism, you have Taoism, you have Confucianism, and those have been sustained for a long time together. We're talking in BCE. Someone's carving into stone pillars to have religious tolerance. I'm making it clear to everyone. I don't care what you believe in, but we believe in harmony. The path to get there, the way you behave, whatever it may be, you're ethical and you're practicing that harmony, that peace.
Right.
But that also means that there's probably understanding when chaos or anger or someone is mean. There's probably a lot more understanding and compassion towards it. Not, oh, they're going through a rough time, but you're out of balance. What's going on? It's not avoidance. It's, you got to deal with this because it's causing a whole energy shift. So I believe with that religious tolerance, it's also the religious accountability, sustaining that harmony, that peace, but helping others sustain it. I feel like if we all practiced our faiths like that, it'd be a whole different place versus going, well, I can help you if you change into this.
Right.
But change first, then I'll help. And then now I've told you, I've met some people that are very different from what I've experienced, they don't mention it at all. Their side, the love and compassion is there.
That's cool.
And it feels cool, because that's what he was saying.
Yeah.
And then we get our fourth one where all of these things combined, but now the heavens will make sure that people know when that balance needs to be corrected. And the Zhao dynasty did that to the Shang dynasty. The Shang dynasty was getting corrupt at the end, and they were making some choices that weren't benefiting the people or that would in the future put them at risk. And the heavens said, they are not practicing. They are not, following with their actions.
They said, yeah.
And something's got to shift. It's not just they strike them down, which means that it gives them opportunities.
Is that why, if you think about it, most dynasties or civilizations, most, not all, only lasts a few hundred years, if that. Like, I forget what the average is, but it's not that long.
I think the reason that started happening, and hear me out, is that only started happening when we started trying to conquer other places. When we weren't minding our own business and we thought that everyone else deserved to believe what we believe. And that's the way. I know, but that's what I mean is, look at how long the Aztec, Inca, and Mayans survived. Yeah, they were fighting each other, right? Same with Native Americans, but still, how long that way of life was sustained. Of course, there were creative minds there. Of course, there were people that were innovative that could have sped up the technological process. But why, if everything's in harmony?
Well, they lived with different types of technology, and they were more spiritual. They lived with the earth. And that's where we got away to where we were more spiritual beings a long time ago. And
when we lived with and weren't conquering.
We didn't need things. We needed food. We needed somewhere to stay. And then we needed community. And that's like the guy I was talking about. Like, that's what he was talking about. His name's Ray. And he's talking like back then, it was like you didn't need things. You had your community. Everybody was like homeschooled but like you were taught like how to live and live within the community and be a part of the community.
But you were valued for who you were.
Yeah.
It wasn't this, we have an exact rubric of what makes you a good person. And if you weren't like this, you're nothing.
And who you are is good. Generally, back then, most were all good. And of course, there probably always have been, a butthead or two. But I think that keeps things lively,
It's just that greed destroys us.
Yeah, something along the way, something got tainted, and then we just,
But then again, it's so cool to think that even though that happened and we see the history and this was taken away, we're so humbled because we have no idea what came before that.
Yeah.
Like all that ink and Aztec Mayan stuff we have is like this little teeny sliver, and this is all the stuff that happened before it of the same people.
Yeah.
Like what we know is the fifth sun cycle, right? That means that there were 4 other lifetimes that happened before that, cycles.
Possibly even more. How do we
Right.
even really know? Honestly.
But that's what's cool is that we don't. And we're constantly uncovering stuff more and more that I don't see the point in hiding it anymore.
No,
It's uncovered. We don't know what's going on. We have no idea.
No.
We didn't even know how thick the crust was. I mean, the United States and Russia gave up on digging to the center,
Right.
6, 7
Well,
miles in?
I was watching a video and they made a super good point. They're like, look at the Grand Canyon. They're like, look at all the layers. They're like, if you look at all the layers in the Grand Canyon, it's like billions of years, like compared to what they're saying the Earth is. And he's like, no, it's older. There's proof right there in our faces, but we allow them to lie to us. That's the thing is there's more of us, the people, than anyone else. We can make them say something, but it's just people don't unite because you got some people that believe, some people that don't, and then you're living in this kind of medium.
Right. And then you go, what can I do that can make me happy in this
Yep.
lifetime?
Exactly.
And is that the hill I'm willing to fight on?
Mhm.
And so with that, the daily thread is that today we enter the law, where power becomes structured and responsibility defines authority. With Hammurabi, we see that justice creates order through clear and lasting systems. Through Moses, we learn that freedom must be guided by principles to remain intact. Through Ashoka, we witness power transformed by awareness into compassion and restraint. Through the mandate of heaven, authority is sustained only through alignment and balance. Each story reminds us that leadership is not control, but responsibility. What governs your actions when no one is watching? Justice defines power when it is lived, not just declared. All of these things showcase the fact that we were always on the path to be corrupt. Not in the bad way, It's just that's a flaw we as humans have. So these things had to be put into place for us early on so that we had a chance. It wasn't these things going, oh, you guys are stupid, and here's like sometimes teachers, here's your rule, you do this, 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 this. And I'm talking old school.
Yeah.
Because I don't do that as much anymore. But this was, you guys need this structure because it'll be pushed, it'll be challenged. You'll have to call people out, come back to it. But you need this kind of structure so you have a chance. Because if you don't, it will be a select few that decide what justice is.
Yeah.
We aren't meant to dictate that. And, people in the justice system will be like, that's literally wrong. But look at some of the judges that are chosen that don't even have experience in law. And they have opinions, and that's
all
what
it
put them
is.
there.
Yeah.
And you go, wait, what? But then still, even though when they're put there, they don't get to decide so they can have their opinions, but the law's the law.
Yeah.
And all of these things just said, it's to protect us. It's to protect the people. Because we as humans are greedy.
Mm-hmm.
One way or another. I mean, we feel it. Everyone feels it when you have a partner. You are a little bit greedy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you want them to be yours, That's part of it too. But I'm not saying that that's a negative thing in my mind,
Yeah.
It's just how we deal with it. Are you greedy and you want and you desire that because you're happy, or are you possessive because you're afraid?
Right.
It's all different stuff. But I love how it doesn't matter. Our souls in the universe recognize when it's not right. And I mean that it's out of balance. That doesn't mean you throw things out the window and abandon ship. Sometimes it just asks you to, like you've said, take a breath, sit and think with it, feel your, body and acknowledge that something's off. And then with those today, the question is, what do I govern? What do I govern? I think it's kind of difficult for people in different ways, I was just thinking about us, like as a parent, as a step parent, like those are different dynamics. And it is kind of hard to govern that,
Yeah.
when you especially like the situations we're in, you know? And you also have a little bit of an extra dynamic of you're the leader of the house. So you have to govern not only kids, but you and I as well. So it's kind of cool because as partners, though, I think it's nice when we finally fall into sync and it's more of a we decision, we discussion. Yeah, we may know the answer that the other person will have, but just being able to have those talks, like all of these people had, we still today interpret the commandments how we see fit. I mean, some people think thou shalt not murder. That means you should not take a life
Yeah.
for any circumstance. Where others say things like war, it's not murder. And there's biblical text to support both, to
Right.
defend your people, that's not murder.
Yeah.
And so they say murder and killing are different things. So again, we kind of interpret stuff differently, but that's why Hammurabi's code was so nice. An eye for an eye. No, that's exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
What you take and destroy, I will take and destroy.
Yeah.
But with that, it's a little bit of, you could be wrong, blame people, but then there was already the court system back in place to prove and everything with it too. But governing yourself is hard enough, so it's hard when you have to govern others. So today we're just going to think about what do I govern and maybe reflect on how we do it. How are we helping the people that govern over us as well? And then today, I want to actually put this on our vision board because it's write one rule you choose to live by clearly and simply. We're going to choose a rule. And that doesn't mean that I have to live by yours, you have to live by mine.
Right.
But I think it'd be cool to write a rule that we want to live by that's just very clear. It's not we're creating our own sense of justice, of consequence.
On the vision board. That's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
What
What's
would
a
you wanna
simple
write?
rule that we could put on
A
there?
simple rule?
I needed help thinking of one.
Live in love. Why not? That's a simple rule. Simple rule that you could live by is
It would be
to
like
try
governing
and
our
do
choices.
one good thing a day, to make sure you do at least one good thing a day for somebody else. It
No.
doesn't have to be an extreme big thing.
But I don't see people every day.
That means you'd have to make yourself known and out there. And you're gonna have to anyways with your new career path.
Well, yeah, we're gonna write rules for ourselves. One rule for ourselves.
Right. Well, I'm saying you asked the question. I was just telling you.
Yeah, no, I like that, but those are like goals, baby. Like goals are like intentions to do. Like a rule is something that kind of
Why can't that be a rule? Why can't that be a
because
rule you live by? So what would your rule type thing be then? Because I'm thinking about it differently.
yeah, just
Like
a
in a
simple
daily,
rule. Like I will not do anything to injure myself or others. Like something like that.
so it's not like a daily rule or anything. It's like just a rule in general, just
Yeah,
like
just
for
something I want to
a
live
life rule.
by. Yeah. Like I will not inflict self-harm, I will never inflict self-harm
Gotcha.
is like a rule. So I like
Okay.
the intentions and stuff, but I like to keep those separate from rules
Okay.
because rules are more of like they contain something, whereas intentions and goals shouldn't be contained. I just don't want that feeling around intentions and goals.
Mm.
Like follow the rules is more like, oh, I need to take accountability for something.
Gotcha.
Like I said, something that causes self-harm. If I said I wasn't going to cause self-harm, but then I say something,
That causes self harm.
yeah, and then you
Ah,
go, you got to kind of follow your own rules there. Versus if I didn't do something good for someone, you wouldn't say, well, you need to follow your own rules. You'd say something along the lines of, well, there's still opportunity, there's still time.
right.
What could you do? It asks for reflection. So that's kind of what I
Oh, okay.
meant.
Oh, I like that. I like how you rephrase that. I like how you turn that. That's cool. Thank you.
Yeah. I like it because it makes it so it's accountable. Like in this house, we will not swear, or like with the girls, we will
Right.
not say something negative or attack each other verbally. It could be something along those lines.
Right.
I will never wish harm on family member. So it's just kind of things that, maybe we need to work on, but it
Right.
needs to be made very clear. And it's when that's a rule, and that's the thing too. It could be a rule. We have to have that talk when we make it. Is this a rule for I and you?
Or
Or is this
we.
a rule that one of us or both of us are like, okay, I kind of expect this of both of us. That's something that we have to discuss as well. And if you do this in a house with other people, if it's in the house, you should discuss it,
Yeah, for sure.
unless it's very, very private and it's like a personal in your room kind of thing, then that's fine. But then lastly, the final thought is that true power is defined by what one upholds consistently. Okay. We can only be consistent with things and really step into our true power when it's something that challenges us. Right. So I don't need to make a rule for something that I don't do anyways to give myself a pat on the back. That's why I said the self harm in terms of verbal stuff.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, the way I do talk to myself is a problem. And if I hold myself accountable to, I even thought about putting on this bracelet that my mom told me about. It's called A Complaint Free World. I have a book and a bracelet she let me look at. But it's a practice. And they did it at the school when she was a teacher or a principal or something. She did it with people. And it was you wore this purple bracelet, and it's like a complaint-free world. Every time throughout the day you complained, you switched hands. So, you started to recognize, wow,
You're moving.
if you're someone that complains a lot,
You're gonna notice how many times you switch.
and then you're gonna notice when you stop switching, you know, when you're starting to become more appreciative,
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And I think I would start there versus, if you're struggling with something, it's not always cold turkey it. And sometimes it's dangerous to do that
Yeah. But something like
because
that, that's not a cold turkey thing. That's awesome.
yeah,
I
that's
think.
what I'm saying. It kind of
Yeah.
gives you more grace rather than "Oh, messed up. Look, I can't.
Yeah.
But that is just wow.
Mm.
You're physically recognizing.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna do something along those
No, that's
lines.
cool because that is a definite thing, like a psychological thing when you're tying it to something like
It's like when people get
that
angry and
mind.
they
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 snap
snap the
themselves.
rubber
Yeah.
band.
It's that the way your brain works, it does rewire stuff. That is pretty neat though. I never would have thought about it that way, but I can picture it, how it works so well. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
cool.
And so we're gonna think about all that stuff today. And we only have, what, 5 days left?
Where are we at? Law?
Yep, we have
1, 2, 3,
legacy,
4, 5.
blessing, threshold, rest, reflection. So we really are at a calm point in our season. Last season, it was kind of love after life. So when you're separated from your love or it goes somewhere else, this is a different feeling. This is almost like being at peace while you still are alive here, while you still have the opportunity to touch people here. And so we get to see that peace with our tested hero. And I'm just excited to see where the rest of this month takes us.
Yeah, for sure.
And then to kind of see where it goes from there, right? April is like birth, right?
Yeah.
Creation. And that's when we kind of are starting to create our separate identities a little bit too in our relationship and our business. So that's exciting.
Yeah. It's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be fun, I think for you guys to watch us grow for sure,
Are you
in the
going to
different things that
remember
we
us
do.
here?
I definitely will because I think I need everybody and everybody needs everybody.
You still
There's
love me when
never
you're on the other room, on the other side?
so far away. Doesn't even miss in a place anymore.
You heard it here first, folks. He's
You're welcome.
totally crushing on me.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
See you guys. Love you.